the next 800 words of my brain barf, I'm not going to read, but I'll just give a summary.
Last week, we mentioned that we were going to be exploring our characters' fatal flaws, and we each found completely different ways of doing that with different outcomes. So in today's spoiler video, we're going to be sharing some of the details of those flaws of our characters and how they show up.
And those different outcomes didn't happen intentionally. It was just a factor of how we happened to do our brainstorming that led us in very different directions.
Right, so your analysis came in the form of just a brain dump in a giant Word document. Mine ended up being more the lyrics to a song, and that was very, very different approaches. How about you share just a little bit about what you discovered about Arnold, our one of our main characters, in your analysis?
All right. So the first part of my brain dump was just an overview of what his flaw is, and then the rest of it is how that impacts the story, interaction with other characters. So I'll go ahead and read the first part, and then I'll just summarize everything else because there's a lot here. I say that Arnold's fatal flaw is that he refuses to accept advice, and not entirely intentionally. The unintentional part is that he wants to reach decisions on his own. He fears that if other people influence him in the decision, then it's not really his own decision. He believes that means that if he doubts himself later on, then he will be less confident because he knows he was influenced by others. The more intentional part is this. Arnold likes giving advice to others because it makes him feel smarter or otherwise superior to them. Consequently, he feels that if he accepts advice, he is admitting that the other person is smarter or otherwise superior to him. So that is general overview of his flaw, and I won't take the time.
It is one that I can relate to. I think a lot of people can relate to feeling that kind of.
Yes, it's one that I can relate to in many aspects as well. And the next 800 words of my brain barf, I'm not going to read, but I'll just give a summary of how that impacts the world and the other characters. There's a character that we haven't mentioned yet on video, I don't think, and that is Reese, who is Arnold's best friend in high school before he gets pulled forward. And in our story brainstorming, we have Reese giving Arnold some small pieces of advice in high school, and then later on, after Arnold is pulled forward and Reese is a successful businessman, he gives Arnold some pieces of advice as well. So part of my exploration was, what is it that causes Arnold to accept Reese's advice in that area? And I think what it is that Arnold advises or helps Reese out academically a lot in high school. Reese isn't very good academically. Arnold is great academically, so he helps him out, and that makes Arnold feel superior to him in the academics. So when it comes time for Reese to give him social relationship advice, Arnold can still hold on to that feeling of superiority from academics. And then later on in the story, I'm not sure how much of this plot stuff we have shared already, but there is some mistake that he makes, or a series of mistakes that he makes, because he refuses to listen to the advice of others that lead to some major problems that his future self is sending things back in time to try to fix, so that way this major disaster doesn't happen because of his decisions. And part of the exploration is what needs to happen for Arnold to actually accept that advice from his future self. And so I think there needs to be some consequences of his own actions that Arnold faces, maybe not as severe as what would eventually happen, but some consequences that he needs to face to realize, I actually do need to change. And then there was a lot of exploration as well into what that might look like as far as the communication with his future self and him, and all sorts of things there. But again, this was a brain barf. There wasn't a whole lot of structure here, but it explored a lot into the areas of how his fatal flaw affects the world, affects his relationship with other characters.
The word brain barf there. That's very picturesque. I like that. Mine was very different. One of the things that we've talked about is, and this is a little bit of a side trail here, but we talked about the possibility of perhaps maybe exploring the idea of using songs as a marketing tool to promote the book, songs written from the perspective of some of our characters. So my exploration into Vanessa's fatal flaw really took the form of what might a song look like. I have 4 verses. I have an idea of a chorus, but that's not written here. Forgot where I was going with this, but the story here is, it is Vanessa's fatal flaw in the first part of the story is that she is so intent on finding a place to fit in and to belong that she's willing to basically, when people ask her a question, she tells them what she thinks they want to hear rather than what may be true, to the point where she ends up believing whatever it is that she tells them. And so what she needs to explore then is identifying who she really is and the role that she really was designed to play in the world. The first 4 verses here that I have written down are really just an exploration of her feeling of not belonging. I was driving as I was thinking through this, so I didn't really have the freedom to type out what I was thinking, so it was really just mulling it over in my head. And I look objectively at this and I realized there are things that I wish were more poetic. There's a lot of work left to do. But I'll share with you what I've written down from Vanessa's point of view, exploring that feeling of not belonging. Standing with my toes near the water, staring at the edge of the pool, still a child, but nobody's daughter. If life's a stage, then I must be the fool. If I could just jump in, I could be swimming. Unless I would go under, then I'd drown. When everybody else seems to be winning, why do I let everybody down? Clinging to the handrail, I've now stepped in. My feet are cold, but I can pull them out. I wish I had a place to be accepted, but my heart that wants to hope is filled with doubt. You brought me there, and now as you are nearing, I turn away when you reach out your hand. A lifetime of rejection has me fearing, and your honest love is hard to understand. So your brain dump or brain barf went very broad, exploring what impact does this fatal flaw have on the storyline and on the world. And my stewing, without being able to write things down, just letting it refine and refine and refine, really went deep into how does this fatal flaw affect the character. And it as you could see, it was a struggle for me just to keep it together here. I've read this a number of times to different people, and it just getting into the mind of this character and the pain that she is feeling, and also the pain that the prospective adoptive parents are feeling, trying to show love and seeing that it's just not being accepted. It's not working. I want you to see how much I love you, and you won't see it. That emotional challenge just went really deep for me.
It's just interesting how our different strategies took us in very different directions as far as all the impacts on the world and other characters versus the very personal impact on myself as the character.
We talked about possibly taking that song and using verses as a preamble to different chapters. We talked about actually possibly even producing them as songs that hopefully reference back to the book. But it came from an exploration of who are these characters? What are their flaws? So our question to you is, what strategies do you use to foster that exploration in your characters' perspectives? We'll look forward to reading your comments, and we'll see you again next week.